We're going to go over how to do your unknown report, but before you do that, we first have to finish filling up the descriptive chart. So I don't have one with me, not a blank one anyway. So I just drew one so you can see what all you still have to fill out. You should have all of your test results filled out. So for instance, you should have all of your physiological characteristics filled out, and all the physiological characteristics filled out, and the hydrolysis tests. What we're missing is the cultural characteristics and the optimum growth rate and the temperature stuff. So we're gonna go over how to do that. And then the next video, we'll go over how to actually use this information to figure out what your unknown is. So in your descriptive chart, you probably already have your name on there, your lab section, the Tuesday, Thursday, 1 to 4. No, I'm sorry. The Tuesday, Thursday, 1 to 2:30 lab is section 01. The Tuesday, Thursday, 4 to 5:30 is section 03. And the Wednesday, Friday, 9 to 10:30, or no, I'm sorry, 10 to 11:30 is section 02. Not that that's a big deal. If you don't get that right, it doesn't really matter. And then your unknown number will go here. And once you know what your unknown bacteria is, you will handwrite the name out here. So you've got the morphological characteristics already taken care of. You did this in the first section of the lab where we did the slides and stuff. So we need to talk about cultural characteristics. So depending on your unknown number, these cultural characteristics will be different. And I have already typed up what I called Unknown Report Addendum, where you will find this information, because depending on what your unknown number is, these different categories will be different for you. So I'm going to switch over here and show you this. On the computer, there goes my prop up thingy. On the computer, because I don't have this printed out because I just typed it, is the Unknown Report Addendum. So it says in bold, and I highlighted that it's super important, critical, you get the oxygen requirement correct, because if you don't, you might end up in the wrong part of a separation outline. So see how on this left side right here, I have unknown number. So I've got unknown number there. So your unknown number, they're all listed going all the way down. And then I tell you what color it is, whether it's white or cream or green or red. Those of you that have a white or cream color, you never really had like a fun, exciting color. But some of you, if you remember, your bacteria, the longer it sat in your drawer, turned a really dark green color, or it turned a really dark red color. And those colors are pretty important. So, I put an X. So for instance, number 8 is green. Number 1 is white or cream. So you can see what I did there. And then another thing that's important that's in this descriptive chart here is the whether you're a swarmer or not. So if you are a swarmer, I put an X down. So for instance, number 7 is a swarmer. And then oxygen requirement is super, super, super important. So oxygen requirement depends on how your bacteria uses oxygen. And what you're looking at are the test results here on fermentation tests. So if you're looking at your descriptive chart, I would follow along, by the way, with your own descriptive chart. If you've tested, and I'm only looking at acid here, acid for all fermentation tests. So that includes the glucose, lactose, mannitol. We didn't do, and I think I already had you guys cross these out. We didn't do the dulcitol or the myo-inositol, so you can cross those out. Dextrose, lactose, mannitol, methyl red, VP, technically MSA, but we're not going to worry about that. These are all fermentation tests. If you had a positive for acid, or in this case, this is positive for alcohol. If you had a positive in any of those for acid, or this one for alcohol, in any of them, just one, any of them, you have a facultative anaerobe. And I've technically already given you the answer here, but I want you to understand what that means. That means that your bacteria could use the sugar that's there and ferment it and create organic acids or alcohol as a byproduct of fermentation, or it doesn't. It could go either way. It could be anaerobic, or it could be aerobic. On any normal descriptive chart, we have obligate, anaerobe, facultative, anaerobe, obligate, aerobe. Let me talk to you about this one really quick too. With obligate anaerobe, let's break this word down first of all. So anaerobe means what? Without oxygen, right? Obligate means has to. So in this case, an obligate anaerobe has to grow in the absence of oxygen. It can't grow in the presence of oxygen. All of our bacteria at least can grow in the presence of oxygen because the test tube caps aren't tight and the lids to the petri dishes aren't tight, right? So technically oxygen can get in and out of those two spaces. So our bacteria have to be able to live in an environment where oxygen is present. Obligate anaerobes can't live in an environment where oxygen is present. And in fact, you have to grow them in a special chamber that gets the oxygen pulled out and the bacteria is growing in the absence of oxygen there. So none of your bacteria can be an obligate anaerobe. So we have to decide whether you are a facultative anaerobe or an obligate aerobe. And these fermentation tests are what tells us that. Like I said, if you had a positive test result in any of the, for acid for fermentation tests or here alcohol, if you got a positive there, at least one, your bacteria is a facultative anaerobe. And again, I've already told you, I've already let you know, like for instance, number 1 is a facultative anaerobe. But if you look at number 8, it's an obligate aerobe. So what does obligate aerobe mean? Obligate, again, is has to. Aerobe is oxygen. So that means this one has to grow in the presence of oxygen, which means it uses oxygen as a final electron acceptor. It does not go through fermentation. It does not produce organic acids or alcohol as a byproduct of fermentation. So the bacteria that is an obligate aerobe will have gotten negatives here on all of the fermentation tests. Here, it would have gotten a negative in the VP, and it would have gotten a negative technically in the MSA, even though we're not going to really worry about that. So you would have gotten a negative in all of those test results to have been an obligate aerobe. And again, I tell you on this unknown report addendum, whether you are a facultative anaerobe or an obligate aerobe, but I wanted you to understand that. And then in your descriptive chart, you've got growth at 10 and growth at 45. You can go ahead and cross those out. We didn't test that at all. We could have seen if your bacteria grew in either of those temperatures. So for all of you, your optimum growth rate, we're going to call it 37 degrees C. Okay, so all of your bacteria grew at 37 degrees C, and that's the optimum growth temperature for most of the bacteria that we have. And then everything else, I didn't put any test results here, but you all should have all of this filled out. Again, all of this filled out minus the dulcitol or the myo-inositol. You can cross those out. You should have MSA filled out, VP, gelatin, growth, and liquefaction. You should have urea, starch, and iodine filled out. So once you have all that information, then we can move on to the how to do the unknown report, which is what we're going to do next.